everyone, and welcome back to Logan's Voice. I'm Doug Ballinger, Logan's dad. When we lose someone we love, especially a child, the grief that follows is devastating beyond words. But when that loss is sudden, traumatic, and unjust, like losing someone to fentanyl poisoning, grief doesn't come alone. It brings its friends blame, guilt, and regret. They move into the empty spaces. They whisper into your ear at 2 a.m. They weigh down your chest when you try to breathe. You blame yourself for what you didn't see. You feel guilt for not somehow stopping the unstoppable. You regret every missed call, every sharp word, every moment you wish you could rewind and redo. The world around you, friends, family, even strangers, sometimes makes it worse without meaning to. The questions they ask, the things they don't understand, the judgment that drips off their words like poison. Where were the parents? Why didn't they get him help? As if loving someone fiercely was ever a guarantee against losing them to a poison they never even saw coming. Today, we're going to talk honestly about the chains that blame, guilt, and regret wrap around our hearts, why they show up, why they hurt so badly, and how we can start slowly to loosen their grip and find room to breathe again. Because grief after fentanyl poisoning is already a heavy enough burden to carry. You don't have to carry the weight of blame, guilt, and regret forever. I've heard this old saying before: grief is the price we pay for love. But blame, guilt, and regret are the debts we never meant to owe. We think we're supposed to save them, but sometimes love alone isn't enough to protect someone from a poisoned world. Blame is often the first visitor that shows up after traumatic loss, and it's ruthless. When I first lost Logan, I blamed myself for everything. Every decision I made, every warning I didn't give, every sign I might have missed, even the moments I thought I had done the right thing, I replayed them over and over, asking myself if they were somehow wrong. That's what traumatic grief does. It convinces you that you should have had the power to change something you never controlled in the first place. And that's self-blame. And self-blame can sound like this: if I only had checked on him that night, if I only had taken a different approach, if only I had known the dangers of fentanyl. Hell, I didn't even know how to spell fentanyl before Logan died. We invent entire alternate histories where we imagine how we could have saved them if we had just done one thing differently. The tragedy is that these imagined histories are pure fiction. Grief's cruel way of making us responsible for what wasn't in our hands. And here's an important reminder: you did not fail. You loved your child, and love is never a failure. And then there's the external blame, the unfair judgment. Society often fuels that blame. Friends, coworkers, even strangers who don't know anything about your story. It sounds like, where were the parents? How did they not see it coming? Maybe if they had been stricter, they must not have cared enough. These comments are devastating. They pile on shame at the exact moment you need support. And they reveal a deep misunderstanding of how addiction and fentanyl poisoning actually happen. Fentanyl doesn't discriminate. It steals lives from good families, bad families, rich families, poor families. None of that matters. Addiction is a disease. Fentanyl is a weapon. Love can't always outrun either one. Why we turn to blame and trying to make sense of the senseless? Blame gives us the illusion of control. If we can find someone, even ourselves, to blame, it feels like maybe the world isn't so random, so cruel, so unsafe. But the reality is, Sometimes horrible things happen, and no amount of love or vigilance could have stopped them. And it's not about who's at fault. It's about understanding that traumatic loss shatters the idea that life is fair, and no amount of self punishment will bring our loved ones back. And then after blame comes its twin, guilt. And if we're not careful, guilt can become a second loss, the loss of ourselves. If blame is the spark, guilt is the fire that keeps burning long after the funeral is over. For grieving parents, guilt often feels endless, like a current pulling you under when you're already struggling to stay afloat. And the guilt isn't just about one moment or one decision, it's about everything. It's about not being able to protect them. It's about feeling like you failed at the one job you believe you were put on this earth to do, to keep your child safe. And here's the forms that guilt takes. There's protective guilt. I was supposed to protect them from harm, and I didn't. And survivor guilt. I'm still here. Why not me instead? Boy, I said that one a lot. And then there's action guilt. If I had only gotten them into treatment sooner, or if I had pushed harder, or if only I had been stricter or more understanding or just better. And then emotional guilt. I yelled at them once. I was frustrated. I said something I can't take back. Guilt tells us that if we feel bad enough, we might somehow make up for what happened. But that's a lie. You don't have to punish yourself forever to prove how much you love them. You already proved it by being their parent. You already proved it by caring so much that you're listening to this right now. Guilt is often misplaced. Addiction and poisoning are larger than any one parent or any one decision. These losses are the result of a broken system, supply chains that are poisoned, and forces far beyond one person's reach. And let's talk about the difference between healthy versus toxic guilt. Healthy guilt acknowledges real mistakes and invites growth. Example is, I didn't know enough about fentanyl. Now I speak out so others can be warned. Toxic guilt demands endless self-punishment. It whispers that you deserve this pain, that you're unforgivable. And here's the reality check. There is nothing loving about punishing yourself forever. The ones we lost wouldn't want that for us. They loved us, and they still do. And just when you think you've cried every tear there is, regret steps in, whispering about all the moments you wish you could have back. If guilt is about what we did or didn't do, then regret is about what we lost, the moments that were stolen, the chances that will never come again. Regret lives in those quiet spaces, when the house is too still, when the phone doesn't ring, and when you replay conversations in your mind and wish you could change the ending. Regret sounds like, I should have said I love you more often, or I should have hugged him that day instead of arguing. I should have driven to check on him one more time. I should have seen it coming. It's the voice that says if you had just made one more call, one more gesture, one more sacrifice, maybe, just maybe, they'd still be here. But here's the harsh truth. Regret plays by unfair rules. It judges the past from the cruel clarity of the present. And none of us had that clarity at the time. The suddenness of fentanyl poisoning leaves no warning, no second chances, and no slow goodbye. It rips our loved one away at an instant, often without them even knowing they were in danger. That suddenness magnifies regret. There's no time to make amends, no time for a be safe text or a come home plea, no chance to say everything you thought you had more time to say. It leaves us with 1,000 unfinished conversations, 1,000 imagined do-overs. And the gentle truth about regret, you loved them. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. If love alone could have protected them, they would have lived forever. You can't heal regret by torturing yourself. You heal it by honoring their memory and giving yourself permission to be human. We are all imperfect. We are all trying. And none of us were meant to carry regret like a life sentence. And what would they say to us now? If we could hear their voice one more time, if somehow the walls between here and there could fall away, what do you think they would say to us? I don't believe they'd blame us. I don't believe they'd want us to carry guilt like a chain around our hearts. I don't believe they'd want us drowning in regret. I believe they would say, thank you for loving me when I couldn't always love myself. Thank you for every sacrifice you made. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when the world did. I'm sorry that it hurts this much. I never wanted to leave you. Please live your life, laugh again, breathe again, carry me in your heart, not on your shoulders. Grief tells us we failed, but love, real, enduring love, tells us we did enough. We are enough, and we are still enough. So today, if you're carrying blame, guilt, or regret, try just for a moment to hear their voice instead. The voice that says, I love you, Dad. Thank you. Please keep going. Grief after a traumatic loss, like losing a child to fentanyl poisoning, is not something you simply get over. It reshapes who you are. It carves scars into places no one else can see. Blame, guilt, regret, those are heavy chains we carry in the early days, and sometimes for months or years or even decades after. But over time, if we allow ourselves grace, we can loosen those chains. We can remember that loving someone doesn't mean we had the power to save them. We loved them the best we knew how. We fought for them. We showed up. And we continue to show up by remembering them, by speaking their names and fighting for change. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending we aren't broken. It means carrying their memory forward with love instead of carrying guilt like a punishment. So today, if you're listening to this and feeling buried by blame, guilt, or regret, I want you to hear this. You did not fail. You loved deeply. You still do. And that love will always be bigger than the chains grief tries to wrap around you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving yourself permission to feel and to heal. If you need more support, you are not alone. You can visit hopemovementcoalition.com and connect with people who understand what you're going through. You can also find grief support resources, awareness tools, and way to get involved in the fight to save lives. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Speak your loved one's name and know this: love always leaves a mark, but so does survival. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent any longer.